Go is an ancient, abstract strategy board game which was invented in China more than 2,500 years ago, and it is probably the most complex game that humans can play. Go is played with 2 players on a 19 by 19 board, although beginners can also play on smaller boards. The goal of the game is to try to surround a larger total area of the board than your opponent. A game of Go starts with an empty board, and then black starts first and players take turns placing their stones on the intersection points of the board. Stones cannot be moved after they are placed, but they are removed from the board if they are surrounded by the opponent's stones. Players are not allowed to make a move that reverts the game to a previous state, otherwise an infinite loop would be possible. If there are no more useful moves, a player can pass their turn. The game ends when both players decide to pass. The game is scored by the number of surrounded points and captured stones. White players are given extra points called a komi to compensate for the black first move advantage.
So now the question remains, what is AlphaGo? AlphaGo is a program created by Google's DeepMind, led by Dimas Hassabis, to be able to beat any player at the game of Go. For years, it was always believed that a computer could never be able to win at the game of Go. Due to its large complexity and more possible outcomes than atoms in the observable universe, it was always assumed that it required a great deal of human intuition. This, until recently, computers were never able to achieve. AlphaGo aimed to disprove that theory. So there are 3 main components to AlphaGo. The first is the policy net, which was trained on high-level games to imitate professional Go players. The second component is the value net, which evaluates the board state and says what is the probability of winning in this particular position. Then the third component is the tree search. This is where AlphaGo will look through different variations of the game and try to figure out what will happen in the future. So if we take a position like this, first, the policy net would scan the position and come up with some interesting positions to play. It then builds up a tree of variations and employs the value net that tells us how promising the outcome would be. After building a product that was suitable, they wanted to put it to the test and go face to face against the world's best Go player, Lee Sedol. And after a great battle between human and machine, AlphaGo came out on top and won 4 games to 1.
In one of these particular matches, AlphaGo's move 37 has gone down in history. It played an extremely unconventional move, one that would have made no sense to a human. An AlphaGo creator during the Lee Sedol match said, AlphaGo said there was a 1 in 10,000 probability that move 37 would have been played by a human player, so it already had known that it was an extremely unlikely move. But it went beyond human guides and came up with something new, creative, and different. Usually, Lee Sedol takes a few minutes per move, but after move 37, he thought about his next move for over 12 minutes. Sedol was not able to read AlphaGo's strategy. By placing pieces much earlier than anticipated, it was able to progress itself into capturing a large territory on the bottom side of the board, putting the machine at an extreme advantage. Moves never before seen like this from a computer have actually contributed immensely to the game of Go, showing opportunity in stone placement not before thought possible. Fan Hui, a spectator of Go's matches and a professional Go player, said that AlphaGo's decisions are unencumbered by the tradition, theory, and teaching of human play. Instead, it learns the game for itself, giving it the opportunity for fresh thinking and leading to unique, free-spirited style, which in turn has unshackled human players from tradition and allowed us to think differently about the game.